Welcome to Detox Cafe. We're so excited that you're here and you're joining us live. This series is I Kissed My Last Frog. It's going to be exciting. Tonight's panel is going to be fun. We pray that you enjoy the topic. And before we go right into our program tonight, we have a wonderful devotional piece for you. And again, welcome to Detox Cafe.
Hello, my name is Jules Jean Baptist. It's a pleasure to be with you here today, and I'm going to be taking you to today's devotional, and it is entitled, Thou Wilt Revive Me. And the scripture for today is taken from Psalms 138, verse 7, and it says, Though I walk in the midst of trouble, Thou wilt revive me. The Hebrew rendering of the above is go on in the center of trouble. We have called on God in a day of trouble. We have pleaded with his promise of deliverance, but no deliverance has been given. The enemy has continued oppressing until we were in the very thick of the fight, in the very center of trouble. Why then trouble the master any further? When Martha said, Lord, if thou hadst been there when my brother had died, our Lord met her lack of hope with this further promise. Thy brother shall rise again. And when we walk in the center of trouble, we are tempted to think like Martha that the time of deliverance is past. He meets us too with the promise from the word. Though I walk in the midst of trouble, thou wilt revive me. Though his answer has so long delayed, though we may still continue to go on in the midst of trouble, the center of trouble is the place where he revives us, not the place where he fails us. When in the midst of the hopeless place, the continued hopeless place is the very time when he will stretch forth his hand against the wrath of our enemies and perfect that which concerns us, the very time when he will make the attack to cease and to fail and come to an end. What occasion is there for fainting? And there is a poem that goes with this, and it's entitled The Eye of the Storm. And it says, Fear not that the whirlwind shall carry thee hence, nor wait for its onslaught in breathless suspense, nor shrink from the whips of the terrible hail, but pass through the hedge to the heart of the gale. For there is shelter in the sunlighted and warm. And faith sees her God through the eye of the storm. The passionate tempest with rush and wild roar, and threatenings of evil may beat on the shore. The waves may be mountains, the fields battle plains, and the earth be immersed in a deluge of rains. Yet the soul stayed on God may sing bravely its psalm. But the heart of the storm is the center of calm. Let hope not be quenched in the blackness of night, though the cyclone a while may have blotted the light. For behind the great darkness the stars ever shine, and the light of God's heavens his love shall make thine. Let no gloom dim thine eyes, but uplift them on high, to the face of thy God and the blue of his sky. The storm is thy shelter from danger and sin, and God himself takes thee for safety within. The tempest with him passeth into deep calm, and the roar of the wind is the sound of a psalm. Be glad and serene when the tempest clouds form. God smiles on his child in the eye of the storm. When we go through our many storms in life, we are made weak and weary because there seems to be no end in sight, to the point where it seems like the hopeless and pointless it's hopeless and pointless to continue fighting the countless battles and constantly weathering the storm. It is during the helpless and pointless times the storm is strongest, and while it's hard to depend on God during these times, it is important to wait on God a little while longer, because that's when he takes us to the eye of the storm. And believe it or not, that's where it is the most calm. And you would think that's where, it is way more like strong, like the storm is a lot stronger and harder to weather, but it's not so. It says in Psalm 71:20, "You who have shown me great and severe troubles shall revive me again and bring me up again from the depths of the earth." And in Matthew 11:28, it says, "Come to me, all who are labor and are heavy, and I will give you rest." So it's important to trust and believe in God's promises and to remember it is he who tells our storms, "Peace, be still."
Bring it all to peace. The storm surrounding me, let it break. At your name, still. Call the sea to still. The rage in me to still. Every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Breathe, call these bones to live, call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus.
excited for everyone to be joining us this evening. This is Detox Cafe. The series for the weekend is I Kissed My Last Frog. And we have life coaches Nekia Foxx and Assel Jean-Pierre joining us. And this is going to get interesting. We're going to share our story time tonight. On top of our story time, we're going to share our experiences on how to get over these hurdles. And it's going to be rocky, and we hope that you enjoy it, and we hope that you learn from it, you gain different perspectives as well. I'm Hadasha. I'll be your host for this evening. We have our co-host Myrna Nash joining us, and we're just going to dive right into it. We're going to dive right into it. And tonight's part 2 of part 3 is breaking point on I Kissed My Last Frog. What was our breaking point, right? But before we get into that, going into the title, when you guys first heard it, what was your definition? Like, what did you guys think about I Kissed My Last Frog? Starting with you, Nekia.
To me, it was about the moment before it all happens. So it was a confirmation of I know it's more to come. And I must be willing to have the courage to see the other side and what God really has for me. So it's unveiling the mask. So it was like the last time.
Right. And you, Assel, like, what does the title mean to you when you hear I Kissed My Last Frog?
I guess for me, I would say it was that moment where it was like, are you done trying to do things your way, and are you ready to do it my way? That's how I would take it.
And we have our co-host Myrna. When you heard it, when we've been discussing it,
Right.
what came to your thoughts when you heard I Kissed My Last Frog?
Honestly, it was, I think, a combination of both. It was looking at myself and saying, is this all that I'm worth? Is there better for me? And what am I willing to tolerate? And what example am I here to set for my own children?
Right. So coming up with this title, I Kissed My Last Frog, and we're going to go right into story time.
Right.
I actually, coming up with this title, you know, the world says you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you get that prince or that princess, right? And I just remember having girl talk with one of my friends, and I sat on her sofa, and she's venting to me, I'm venting to her, and I just looked at her, and I'm like, you know what? I kissed my last frog. That's it. I'm done. Like, what am I doing? What is Hadasha doing with her life? You know, and it got to the point where I'm like, you know, it's not even about blaming the other person. Is what am I doing? Why am I allowing myself to get into a situation, right? Or like, what do I have to change? The mindset do I have to change to stop accepting certain situations that I put myself into? And going to the last situationship that I got out of, all God was telling me in that moment, getting out of it, because I was doing a 40 days of prayer. I was in the middle of a 7 weeks of prayer. And all I heard God say was, well, you were doing your own thing. So it's about time you allowed me in. And doing that whole moment of I kissed my last frog, you know, it's not even that the other person is a bad person. It goes into, why are you accepting someone or things, situations that's not yours? That's not of what God's will or purpose is. Ask him, not in the middle of it, in the beginning of it. Like, is this you? Is this okay? You know, from the jump, not in the middle, like, is this you? May I have it? Can I move forward with this? While you're in the middle of the situation. Now your feelings get into it, and now you're begging and crying out to God to heal a broken heart. I was like, well, you wouldn't have that broken heart if you just had come to me in the first place. You know, so that was my willingness of saying that's it, and then when I went to God, the verse that came up and I shared with you guys is when I was a child, I did childish things. It got to a point where it's like, grow up. Like put me into your journey. And I would just love to hear from you guys your breaking point. Starting with you, Nekia, I would love to hear, what was that moment that you said enough is enough?
I would say for me, it was the total surrender. So it was everything that built up to the point that I had no choice but to totally surrender. It went back to in the Bible was Ishmael and Isaac, where it's like I was so accustomed to making things happen and doing things that looked like what it was, looked like the promise. And it was not necessarily meeting the individual or blaming that person. It was like, what's the real version of me? Like,
Wow.
am I ready to really deal with my truth? Am I ready to really allow myself to kill my ego and pride? Because that's what's really driving the illusion of me creating something what I thought is it.
Wow.
It looked like it. I made it till it felt like what I thought it should be. But deep down, I knew it was not it, because, in the Bible, it brings confirmation. It brings clarity. God brings confirmation and clarity. So if I'm in a state of asking or confused, that was my key. It's like, are you
Mercy.
really ready to truly live in your truth, for one? And are you really ready to face the real version of you that you have not met yet? Because you cannot meet that match until you become the version. So then it forced me to really go in and say, I'm ready to really become the real version of myself.
Oh my God.
So that I can, because I was meeting the matches, but I was not in my truth. So that's why it was the last frog, because I was still a frog, but my pride and ego made me think I was the princess.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Mercy.
So that place of total surrender and like, let me take my hands out of it and let me have the courage to go into the unknown. Because I know what I can do, and that's not working. Let me go into the unknown.
Mercy. And for you, Assel, what was that breaking point? Because we see that you got your princess. We see that you are, in that journey, in that level on within that, okay, God said this is it. But before you got that, this is it, what was your breaking point?
I don't know. I just got to a point where I just got tired of wasting time. Like from about 18 to 23, it was just like, it wasn't so much. I was never a person who made people my girlfriends, because I kind of hold that a little special. But I would talk to people here and there, entertain this and that for a couple months, and if it went somewhere. If it didn't, it didn't. But it just came to a point where just things got boring, like doing certain things, cavort in certain ways. You just find yourself like, as men, we have that ambition and the thrill, and then it's like, it's there until you get it. Then when you get it, it's just like, oh. And it doesn't even have to be purely sexual for anyone who may be assuming that I'm saying that. It's
Right.
even the concept of, you see this beautiful girl, you want to get her number, and then you actually get her number and you get to know her, and it's like, oh, this is boring again. But the excitement of getting the number was there. And so it got to a point for me where it's like, I just got tired of wasting my time. And I'm a big person where it's like, I understand today's culture, it's like the guy got to pay for everything before we even something solid. I was very not like that back then. Like, your first date with me, we're going on a walk in ice cream. I start very small with my investment, and as I see, like, okay, you worth my time and energy, I do more. And I used to create this statement where I said I didn't want to build towers that I had to tear down. And what I meant by that is like, you're sitting there, you're talking to this person and sharing with this person, and then they meeting your friends, and then it doesn't work, and that's a waste of time. And then you go to the next person, and you're doing the same thing. And then it's like, now there's 6-7 people out there in the world that kind of know some intimate things about you, but are not your forevers. And so I
Mercy.
came to a point where I was like, all right, God, I done tried to do this my own way for a while now, and it's just not working. And, that's when I went on that 5-year journey of being celibate, and him preparing me for marriage and preparing me for, everything that I stepped into. And that journey wasn't just, okay, I found my wife. It was, okay, God was like, look, this is your life, but if you give it to me, there's so much more I could do. And the same principles that I used to get married are also the same principles for my job, for my business, where I live, and I live a life that I, logically speaking, should not be living. But it's because I'm in that position where I'm like, all right, God, you do your thing. God has me in positions I would have never been in. So it really just took me to a point where I was just like, all right, the way I'm doing things is not working. I'm tired of this cycle. And I was like, enough. God, let's just do it your way. And it's been like that in all things since then.
All right. Well, going into this whole cycle, right? Just like you said, that total surrender that you and Nekia just mentioned. What does that even look like?
To me, it looks like a blank canvas. And it's the total surrender is, when I say the unknown, that's the phase. Like, for instance, in life, in order to enjoy, in the Bible, the land of the milk and honey, well, the promise, you must take a leap of faith, right?
Yeah.
So in order to receive what God really has for you in every area of your life, you have to go through a season of taking a leap.
Yeah.
So to me, it was, okay, I'm really about to take this leap. And I have to trust that I'm going to be caught. I'm going to be safe.
Yeah.
It's going to, I don't know what level it's, like, I don't know the next step, but I'm willing to go into this new journey, being able to know that it's better than what I could have ever imagined.
Right.
So it was the willingness to allow this new painting to be presented to the world that you don't know what it's going to turn out and look like. But you know it's going to be magical, you know it's going to be amazing, and he's going to bring it all together.
Right. And we want to hear from our co-host, Myrna. What was your breaking point?
I'm so laughing. He knows me so well. I was so stubborn that I didn't realize that there was many signs. But I think for me, it was after everything happened. So it wasn't like a post. It wasn't a before. It was literally after. And again, it was sitting down with people that cared for me, and now was giving me a perspective of what they saw when they saw me. And I said, I'm so tired of being looked at as if I didn't know my own worth, as someone that was weak, and someone that didn't have values. And I just got tired of it. I got tired of looking at my girls staring at me and wondering, why am I even wanting less for myself? They hear so many positive things about what I was able to do for others, but they could not see that same person do it for themselves. So it was a moment of surrender. I think all of us spoke about surrender, where we surrender to God. And for me, I'm in that season right now. I did the leap, and I'm still falling, and I'm still trying to wait to see where I'm going to get caught. And it's a scary process, but I think that in the same token, it feels so free. I feel so free in the sense of I'm literally going to land wherever God wants me to land, right? And so I think that's the exciting part of it for me at this point.
What would you say that, and this could go for both of you, would you say that, or even you as well, that moment, like, do you remember the specific moment? Because usually it's like a thing that happens and it's like, okay, no more. Like, for me, I could say, like, I remember I was in a relationship with this girl, and God told me to break up with her the 1st of January. And I did not do that. And I went through, like, hell for the next 3 months. And it was that last day where she just flipped out and she was just going on. And in my mind, I was like, I never should have been in here. Enough. Like, I remember the event. So was it like an event for you? Like, that moment, that statement that they said, oh, no. Or, like, was it just like a week by process kind of thing?
For me particularly, it was the moment when I felt like deja vu. Where I literally, because, now, even when I'm working with clients, I'm like, know how you feel on your best day, right? Yeah. Know your thought processes during that time. Know what you said you want, how you see yourself, and how you are showing up for yourself. So in the event that the opposite is happening, that's when you know you're out of alignment, right? So if I'm questioning myself or the person, because I literally caught myself in the moment asking, "Are you ready?" And that's when I knew, like, oh my gosh,
you out of place. Right.
this is not it. And I was like, I was saying, I don't think you're ready, but I'm going along with it because this even was the best relationship I had thus far. But in my spirit, it was like, are you going to listen this time? Because I'm showing you this is the moment again. This is not it. What's for you is aligned, assured, and confirmed. You don't have to ask. And it took me back to even just the example that I give others. It's like, listen, anytime God blesses you, it's not, is this you, God? It's thank you, Jesus, so much in the moment. So if I have to pause, or if I am not in that same level of this is not it.
Right.
You don't think that it's because you're scared this time not to repeat the same mistakes as before? So it's not necessarily that you don't have the intuition that this is the right thing, but it's just a question of, man, Lord, is this the right thing? Because I've made the mistake before thinking it was, and
it's
it
like
wasn't.
You keep going after frog to frog, or being a frog to frog.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, for me, I feel like my lessons were listening to my spirit. So I feel like we go through a journey of evolving and evolution and self-mastery where it gets to the point of, do you hear me? And you've gone through several different situations where it's brought you back to, are you listening to me? Because I've shown you. And then when you catch yourself in a similar situation, it comes to you that I saw the day, I remember the moment when it was there and I didn't want to listen, even though I had the pause. I filled in the blank. I came up with a very creative excuse, analogy, or great reason to prolong the process when I knew this was not it. So it was like really getting confirmed, like I know that moment, that feeling when it's off, when it's giving me a slight pause, and I must listen to it this time. That was my lesson.
You know what like bothered me throughout my situation? It was the state of confusion and finding an excuse for it. Like, well, maybe it's me. And then sitting in it and be like, but why is there a state of confusion on where is this going, what's going on, or like what's happening right now, right? And then when it's so crazy, when I prayed the prayer of, and I told Myrna this, when I prayed the prayer that week of, oh God, reveal to me, who's not supposed to be in my life, won't be in my life, for like the both of us, right? I'm praying for like the both of us. Little did I know that 3 days later, God's like, okay, cool. This one. Done. And it's how it happened. You feel so sucking in, like, no, I was praying for somebody else. Right. I was praying about like somebody else, like not this situation. And it got cut in a way where it's like severed. Because when you pray that prayer, right, sometimes you might detach, but there can still be a way to come back, right? Once you ask God to reveal and what's not for you to remove, it's like, okay, cool, severed. Like there's no even a way to even come back around. Your whole emotion is just like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. And it's just like there's like a meme online where like where the guy is holding on to the camera and stuff like that, and God is like, all right, not now, wait for it, hold on now, and you're like, everything looks so chaotic, your emotions are just all over the place. But the beautiful thing about God, even when everything is so chaotic, you still feel at peace. It was the moment that I didn't feel at peace. And when God was like, your emotional awareness, your emotional grace, what like you're looking for, how like you're trying to go about it, it needs to be in me. It needs to be in me. And once you're tapped into me, you're going to know my will. You're going to see it. You won't even want to entertain it. Because you're within my will, and you know that that's just not it. That's not it for you, for your purpose, for your journey. This person has another journey that I'm taking them on. So this is not, both of your paths, it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same. And if you allow me to show up and show out, I can show you. And I think what happens, just like you said, the ego, the pride, and we're so scared to keep fumbling without even realizing it that we're fumbling. So we take that control, like, oh, I got this. I got this. And God's like, no, you don't. You know, it's just an automatic thing. And that's where we go into emotional maturity and awareness. You know, and for you guys, what does that look like to you now at this age on for you not to continue having a frog mentality?
What is emotional? What?
Emotional awareness and maturity. What does that look like inside of you to continue on in a healthier path?
I mean, I guess the way I'd answer that question is, I think once you start to get to a place where you just want to do better for yourself, that already kind of starts that process of self-awareness. And so, you know, you're kind of like, okay, how am I reacting to this? How am I reacting to that? And now if you kind of go deeper into that process, you go from how am I reacting to why am I reacting like this? Which then opens the door to therapy and understanding this happened when you were 12 and you're doing this and and you kind of start to evolve and you heal what you can heal and you manage what you can manage. And so I think within that whole kind of melting pot, you know, we have the emotional maturity, which I've always defined it this way. I always look at maturity as the balance between your self-expression but consideration for people's reactions to that expression.
Right.
So someone who is extremely immature will just do what they want regardless of how other people may feel. Someone who is the opposite of that never lives their reality because they were trying to people please. So maturity is finding the balance where you can be yourself but also, you know, be respectful and mindful of the people around you. And so now emotional maturity comes to a place where when you're in a relationship, married or dating or whatever, where it's like you are not neglecting your needs, but you are also not, you know, being like this demanding person and treating the person like an ATM. You know, and the easiest way I can kind of explain that is, like, I always look at it as a hierarchy of love, right? And the Bible says that you love God, you love your neighbor as yourself. So when it talks about the person who should be the head, it should be God, then yourself, and then people. And what that means is that whatever is at the top is what you will do to please. Everything that you do pleases whoever's at the top. So if you're at the top of this, then everything that you do is to please yourself, even if it's at the sacrifice of your relationship with God or the sacrifice of your relationship with people. If people are at the top, you do everything to please people, even if it's contrary to yourself or to God, even if it's not good for you and it's contrary to God's. But when God is at the top, you then do everything that you do to please God. Now, the mistake people make is they put God and then people and then themselves last. And that's not the correct order, because it says you can't love people unless you love yourself. So it would be God, yourself, and people. And so when you understand that, going into a relationship, you know the things that you need in a relationship, like, you know, you need communication, or, you know, if we get more specific, like if you love to dance, if you love to have fun, you need somebody who meets or who can nurture these kind of aspects of you. And then you also understand that you are adding to what they need or crave. And so when I look at that big ball of emotional maturity, it's understanding, okay, how do I fit into this puzzle while also making sure I fit into their puzzle, making sure I'm giving as much as I'm getting.
And for you, Nekia, when it comes to awareness.
Okay, so this, I will come from a different angle in reference to how I look at emotional maturity. My angle with emotional maturity is in reference to it is the container or the power, because it's connected to my peace.
Yeah.
So when I started really valuing my purpose and protecting my purpose, I had to understand that it wasn't an option for me to master thyself or to gain a level of emotional intelligence, to not let people, things, or situations dictate how I maneuver, because my purpose depends on it. My calling depends on it. So my level of awareness with how I respond to things, my level of awareness of what I'm expecting, and am I showing up in a manner that will allow the world to see me and respond to me in a way that I can be on my calling and my path. I know when I lacked emotional maturity and intelligence, the world just had me like just dangling, like, you know, just I was all over the place, ups and downs. It's no way I could fulfill my purpose in that energetic. So I started really going and saying, listen, I need to see what are my triggers. I need to see what is the root of that. I need to see what are my blind spots. Where am I not loving myself, and where am I not being willing to step up to the plate and have ownership even of my actions. So it's not just an option for emotional maturity, it became a mandate for me. It's a requirement that I had to give to fulfill my purpose.
I have a question for you too, actually for both of you guys. You mentioned earlier on that you recognize, or you saw yourself as the frog, right? You lacked the ego part. I mean, you had ego. You. What would happen if you were already in a marriage situation to where you couldn't just cut it off, right? You recognize you've been the frog this whole entire time. How do you now think that you should be able to turn it around? Because there's relationships that are already together, like you're married, your husband and wife. There's no way to run around. There's no way to just call it a quit, you know, just because now you recognize, oh my goodness, I've been the frog this whole entire time. I haven't been trusting God, you know, and all of that. So what happens when you are in these particular relationships for those viewers that are in relationship and now they're recognizing themselves as a frog, or they are dating a frog or married to a frog? How do we now try to change that and turn that person into, I don't even know how to, you know,
prince and princess that that like we're called to be in the first place.
We were called to be in the first place. Like how I know
I mean, I personally feel as though, okay, if I were in a situation already and I'm now finding out and being brought aware that I want more and it's more for me, and what I'm in right now is not quite in alignment, I now have to inform the individual of where I am in my truth and see if they are at a same place in reference to where they are in their truth, and if they're willing to grow, because it is a level of acknowledgement. First we must admit, acknowledge, and then act. So are they in a place that they're ready to grow, or that they want more, or to align? Because we can all start from where we are, but are they there as well? And are they willing to be?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Like, I think people have the misconception that, like, you know, when you get married and you know that God, that's the person that God gave you, like, oh, it's all happy ever after. Like, no, nothing like that works, you know.
Yeah.
And I think this is the part where sometimes we, specifically Christians, kind of confuse how blessings work. It's like God gives us and blesses us things, but it doesn't end there. You have now been given an assignment.
You have to maintain.
God gives you $1 million. It's not just I gave you. This is an assignment. I give you a thriving business. I give you gifts. It's an assignment, and how you steward it is determining on whether it will flourish or will grow. Whether I will give you more gifts, more blessings, open more doors for you. So in the same way, a relationship is the same exact way. You are given this wife, you are given this husband, and now how you steward it depends on whether it flourishes or becomes a nightmare or not. And so now when you're talking about being in a relationship already where, okay, you're now in it and you wake up and it's like, okay, this is my situation. Well, there's a lot of people in relationships who are not working at it. And so they just settle like, oh, I guess it's just always going to be like this. However, if you're in a situation now where you've come to the realization that this is where you're at and this is your situation, and you now say, you know what, I'm willing to work. Then you just pick one thing to work on. And if you want to work on intimacy, you start working on intimacy. If you want to work on communication, you start working on communication or trust. But just work on something. And also, you know, the best thing that you could have done is marry someone who's also willing to work. And if they're not, you know, you pray, you hope that God can sway their heart, because as a human being there's only but so much you can do to change a person. You kind of really, not even kind of, you can't change a person. They have to want it for themselves. And so now if you're in a situation where the situation is bad and the person has no desire to change or even a willingness to work, and if prayer and fasting ain't cutting it, God gonna show you what the next move is, regardless of what they may be. But outside of that, it's work on something. If it's not intimacy, if it's not having more fun, if it's not finding activities to go together, spending more time together, just work on a thing. Because it doesn't matter how happy you see people on social media. I'm literally like 120 and for these questions, the question that I ask, and I go up to every couple, whether it's pastors and wives or regular people, and I say, hey, you guys married, have you ever wanted to divorce this person? No one has ever said never. Everyone always says there has been a point where I did want to divorce this person. And this is the most happiest of couples I've asked, the most religious, you want to say, of people, and they all say yes. And I start finding out, like, okay, the difference between the ones who did get divorced and who didn't is, what was the foundation of your relationship? What was your relationship standing on? Was it what I wanted, or was it something greater than yourself? And when it's greater than yourself, then now when it comes into putting in the work, it becomes a little easier. So to answer it as clearly as possible, it's like, if you're in a tough situation, work on something. Pick one thing. Don't do a million things. Work on something. And be patient.
But at the same time, it's like a lot of us are quick to be a flight risk. You know, a lot of us like to run out because we don't like to do the work within the situation. Because I feel like sometimes, whether it's a friendship or whatever it is, relationships is a mirror to who we are, right? And I think a lot of times we're so scared to hear about ourselves within different situations, because you have this one perception of you, and then when somebody else is like, I don't know, you know, and they're saying, no, well, this is how you're making me feel, and you're like, well, how, you know? And when it comes to being emotionally aware, one thing that I was studying on is a lot of us don't like to accept the feeling, whether it's hurt, whether it's anger, whatever it is, to decode it, to dissect it, to understand why are you feeling the way that you're feeling, to understand, like, what can I do to even work on this? You know what I'm saying? Because now we're in a new age of thinking on, well, if it doesn't serve me right now, I'm just going to go.
Right.
And I feel like we bring that into everything.
Right.
Like, you can see it in business. You can see it in companies. You can see it in just like a lot of friendships and just regular relationships. Like, this isn't working out right now, you know? And that's why I even think that God can even bring someone within your life, and that was the person. And because of your unwillingness to self-reflect or to work on it or to learn to keep going to him to maintain, you can lose your blessings.
You can.
And you see it in businesses as well. You see it within the Bible. Like, you can just lose it because you didn't continue working on yourself. You got comfortable. You got comfortable. You know?
So not to say much, but for exactly what you just said is why I came to a place, and this is my only personal view, that I don't believe in dating. Like, I think dating is a complete waste of time, because in the same way that we have finite willpower, right? I believe that there are also things we have finite amounts of, and that could be finite amount of grace, finite amount of patience. And now what happens is, God gave you what you needed for what his plan for your life was, for the person that he had chosen for you. But you decided to waste some grace on this person, waste the majority of your patience on that person, waste the majority of your understanding and trust on this person who never deserved it. So now that you finally meet the person that God had for you, you all tapped out and you can't even see, and you don't have nothing much left to give. And it's like, when you look back, it's like, man, I wasted so many years and so much of myself on people, and I got nothing to show for it.
Right, you're at capacity now.
But you know what's happening? I don't know if that's kind of what you're saying, but it's when you've put so much effort into the wrong person.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah.
When the right person comes, you're fed up.
You ain't got
and
nothing
this
left.
is why I was saying, you know, to kind of like rebuttal a little bit of what you were saying. My spirit can tell me all day long that this is the right person for me.
And now you're tired.
But because I am so tired of or I may see certain traits of that person that reminds me or triggers me, you know, and for me, I'm like, oh, I'm not going through that again. I've been through it. So it's almost now you're looking for this perfect picture, perfect for me, perfect man that has everything laid out for you, so that you don't have to build, that you don't have to not necessarily build, because I know some people don't like me saying the building of the man, not building, but you know, you're just ready to like hop in the vehicle as they're driving,
Right.
and we're ready to go, you know. And so this is where I feel sometimes, even when God give us now who was meant to be ours from the get, right, but because we are so mentally, emotionally exhausted, now we're just questioning, is this truly who you're giving me? Because this is going to require work. It's going to require communication. It's going to require patience, understanding, compassion.
Right.
And you may no longer have that in you to give because you're so drained.
I feel like for me personally, I don't open myself back. Okay, so this is how from a scale of 0 to 100, I like to gauge where am I, and after I think one of the severe heartbreaks, I was like, I would never go below a 65 again. So I feel as though for me, when I am getting close to 100, that's when you're hydrated, that's when you're exercising, that's when you're attracting abundance.
Yes.
That's when you are aligned, you're meeting. And I think when I started looking back on when did I meet the person? Where was I on my scale? Because normally you're going to meet the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's being willing to be in your truth. Was I on low when I met them?
Mercy. So it's getting to where you need to be to attract what you want for a lifetime.
Because it's ultimately, it's the life, success, business, personal, relationship. It's all about the evolution of self and being willing to be so married to becoming what God has put me on this earth to be.
Yeah.
Right.
So if I am devoted to, regardless of what it takes in life,
Yeah.
whom it takes in life, I want to become that person, and I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to get there. Feelings don't matter.
That's right.
Yeah.
The work that I have to do doesn't matter. All that matters is the big picture.
That's right.
And as long as I'm becoming the best version of myself. So I would tell anybody, for me personally, I go on that scale. And normally when I am attracting the false, I was not at my highest self.
Yeah. I love that. Because
Yeah.
now I'm thinking
I
about it.
like
I'm
that.
like, when I was in the
Yeah.
worst, most toxic relationships, it was when I was like not feeling good. You know, I just, all right, I just need a
Bored.
placebo. Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
bored. That's literally what it was.
But
I
you
was
know
bored.
what? This is why therapy is so much important, because I was in a great space of myself when I met certain people. And then after meeting them, I got into a shell because now I was afraid to revisit what I visited when I wasn't. You see? So I feel like that's where therapy come into play, because when you are so sure of your now version of who you are, it doesn't fluctuate up and down. So that fear of you going back does not come back to you, because now you're so sure that you're in a better place and you're going to make better decisions. And, you know, I guess everybody has their own journey and go about it differently. Some are forceful because until you get pushed into it, you just won't ever even take the chance. And some go through the journey because they're being obedient, you know. So I think it's completely different. So it's all about self-care again, like you mentioned. It's making sure you understand you, so that even when you go into your highs and lows, you know that you didn't make any mistake in decisions that you took, because people are going to go up and down in relationships. They're not always going to be at their best. So the question is, at that point, how do you maintain it? And it's just like what Shasha was saying.
Right.
Prayer.
But don't you believe that at the same time, I think that's what even Pastor Aaron said the last time. I feel like once you go into someone, like you are with someone that even starts with the abundance mindset that wants to work with you, I think what people forget is that commitment is not a feeling. Commitment is, I'm with you for the bigger picture,
Yeah.
for the bigger goal. Because I'm not always going to feel 100. And you almost want to feel that stability, because I think my biggest thing when it comes to anything is stability. It's the stability of knowing that you got me and I got you. And I think what I got tired of when it comes to a frog, they're very slippery when wet, right? Is being in relationships that were very slippery when it came to the bigger picture. Because just like how we can say we have a bigger vision for ourselves, now it's meeting someone that also has a bigger vision for themselves. And then now coming together and say, what's the bigger picture? How are we going to do this together? And there's some days where I'm not going to feel at 100. What are you going to do? Leave?
Right.
Are you going to step out now? Because right now I'm feeling at 10.
It depends, though.
I was going to say, from a men's perspective,
Really?
Yeah.
how do you feel? Yeah.
Because, so I think we were talking about this the other day, but when it comes to relationships between men and women, right? And I'm outnumbered at the moment, but hope I don't get killed. When it comes to relationships, women usually, their biggest sacrifices, stereotypically of course, is their time and their bodies. Whereas for a man, his time is not so much value, because it's almost like you're lucky to be around this beautiful princess, and it's more so like we're giving up resources. So what ends up happening is, for a man, if I'm now dating a female and you're going through all of these things, if I'm not in covenant with you, I'm not married to you, I have to really ask myself, am I about to start putting in all my resources, all my purpose into this person I'm not about to be with? And the reality is, everybody goes through something, right?
Right.
Everyone. But now, if I'm not in covenant with you, I don't necessarily have an obligation to stay that. Like, I'm not married to you. So your whole world falling apart, I don't really have an obligation. I don't have to stay, because really, I'm losing more out of this than you are. As a man. As a man, I'm losing way more, because I'd have to give so much more to pick you up on your feet, to support you, to hold you down. Like, the concept of a woman going to depression and a man completely taking care of her is more common than a man being fully depressed and a woman taking care of him. It's more socially acceptable for a man to carry his woman than it is for a woman to carry a man. So now, as a man, when you understand, it don't matter who I'm with, toxic or not toxic, I'm probably going to have to carry whatever woman I'm with. Well, I might as well choose when I'm going to do the carrying, when I'm not, because why do it for every person? I pick and choose. So I understand now, like, you walk into some situations and it's like, nah, you got way too much going on.
Right, which makes sense, right? And that's where I think you get into situations.
Right.
Right? That, like, you probably shouldn't even be in the first place. Because just like what you just said, we all have the opportunity to look at the person, reevaluate, and say, I don't have to deal with this. Right? So now it also goes into getting back into your shell.
Yes.
Right? Because now, and this is probably not on God's time, but let's say like your own time, right? And you see why people go back into their shell, react the way that they do, are not as vulnerable the way that they want to be vulnerable, because they're scared of the reaction of what vulnerability might bring.
Yes.
Right? Because so now, as a person, you just want to maintain strong to get to the end goal of that covenant. Right? Because now you're scared. Oh, well, if I show a bit of vulnerability to this person, are they emotionally strong to accept me? And the beautiful thing is now, I'm like, yo, be vulnerable. Find out from the beginning if they can or not. It will save you so much time if this person is mentally strong or not, or even wants to be mentally strong for you.
Yes.
You might just be a fun time, not a long time. Find out right now. Be just a hint vulnerable. Don't get the full picture. Just be a hint sometimes.
Even that I gotta push up on, because what, I have to choose my words wisely here. What I allow myself to experience with my wife being married, I would never with anybody else. No way. Not even close. But because that's my wife, it's like, oh, we better for worse. So hey, this is what you're going through right now. You having a tough day, tough week, tough month, tough years. All right, I married you for better or for worse. Anyone outside of my wife, I'm not doing that for.
I feel for me personally, I mean, I can agree with that. I think men take it because I feel like the emotional aspect is a larger investment in that concept to most men. For me personally, I am going all in if you qualify. And this is the thing, because the torture of me knowing that I am going halfway, it will beat me up more. So me knowing I'm not living this life to the fullest, or being, because it's the same equal equivalent. If your blessings are, if you house your blessings like this, they can't come all the way in.
That's right.
That's the same thing with emotions. That's the same thing with love. So I must be willing to go either all in,
Right, or not.
and understand the consequences of shutting down, because even the good can't come in.
How do you qualify?
For me, qualification is now understanding that do they have the capacity for me? Are they willing to? I don't know how, and this is what I ask now. I don't know how far you're wanting to go in this life.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're really a warrior. I don't know if you are to the point within yourself that you've really said yes to your journey on the level that it requires to be with me.
Right.
Because if it's an illusion, if it's based on pride, if it's ego, it's going to come out.
That's right.
Right.
And for me, that was also like a particular situation I was in. And when it was time for to cross the line, they chose to go back to their old ways.
Mercy.
And you have to be willing to accept and respect that.
Right.
Because this is their journey.
Right.
Right.
Do you feel like I was like time wasted, or is just a part of the process?
Oh my God! At first, I was beyond. Because I was very clear. I felt like I'm already at a tender age.
Yeah.
I felt like it was time wasted, but it was the level of betrayal that I felt like for my time and my journey. Because I was very upfront and knew the cost beforehand. I was single for 5 years before I went back in, so I was like, I know what it's going to take for me to even get back to that point.
Right.
That was what I was so upset about. Like, now I got to go through this whole
Journey
believing
again.
myself again,
Yes.
questioning
Right.
myself.
Right.
Self-reflecting again.
It's like I don't have time for this.
Yeah,
So
right.
that was really the anger from it. Like, why would you put me through this when I was very upfront and I did the work beforehand?
Yes.
Right.
Ugh.
So that was my hardest thing. Like, I'm here again now, but I am so grateful because once again, it's that knowing that obviously it's more in me that I did not see. And I would not, if it's showing up in my life, it's showing up because it's trying to give me the opportunity, not opposition, but opportunity to see myself in a much broader way that only that situation could have brought out.
Right.
I'm gonna say this, because you very wise, and you got
thank you kindly.
a high level of understanding of yourself. And so how do you differentiate understanding the role that you played as opposed to not blaming yourself?
So the role that I played, so the role that I believe I played versus not blaming myself, I feel like when I embrace both sides of the coin. So respecting the version of give myself grace, but knowing that I had to go through that to be who I am today.
Yes.
Because every relationship I said thank you afterwards. And I had to literally say, because one might have taught me you will never get my emotions again, and then nothing after that
Right.
ever got my emotion again. The other one might have taught me I will never not really love myself on a level that is fulfilling to not just me, but everything that's connected to me. So each one of them was a thank you. So now I don't look at it, and only through that last situation that I thought was the last situation is when I was now being able to embrace, feel the situations, feel the emotions, but get the lesson and become the version of you that's required to move forward.
Right.
I was
I
speaking to
love-
someone.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I was speaking to someone, and they told me that nobody makes bad choices. Basically, in life, we have bad experiences. Because if we were given the opportunity to choose and we already knew what that choice was going to give us, we wouldn't have done it. If you already knew that your marriage was going to end up in divorce, you wouldn't have married that person that was given to you. If you already know whatever the situation may be. So it's almost an experience. And as you mentioned, I think that situation and life bring new version of who you are, because now you are defining yourself into it, recognizing what makes you happy, what does not make you happy, and what you're willing to do in a relationship for it not to happen again. Because again, I'm in a state of mind right now where I'm not wanting to point finger at who did me wrong. I want to see what I could have done better to improve this relationship, even if there was cheating and this. I'm not even looking at what they did. I want to see, what did I do what could I have done better? Maybe the way I communicated, maybe the way that I handled the situations prior to having that happen. Maybe was I clear? Was I sure of myself? Did they see signs of weakness that they knew they could walk all over me? What did I do? What could I have done better to avoid what happened? So I'm now trying not to point out the finger all the time. This is why I'm having more and harder time when we talk about depression and everything else related, anxiety, because now I'm saying, okay, I realize I'm dealing with these situations. So do I need to cause my partner to feel that every single day and forget about how they feel? How they, the response of my behavior towards them. So to me, I feel like we need to hold, and I know Hadasha hates that word accountable, but to yourself, you are to hold yourself accountable for your own action, and not point out fingers. Well, he doesn't carry me when I'm in this situation. He doesn't understand me, because it's almost putting a blame, and we're forgetting that they too have emotions and desires and things that need to be nurtured. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's why I think that sometimes it becomes selfish.
Right. The thing about accountability is you can't even get accountable until you're aware. Right? So, and that's what even Dr. Judith was talking about last night. You have to be aware of where you're at in life for you now to take hold of your self-accountability.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because just like I tell everyone, I can't make you hold yourself accountable. I can only make myself accountable for my actions. So that's like my thing about it, right? Like, I can't control you. I can't control your words. I can't control your motives. I can't control your intelligence. I can't control the way that you move, but I can control myself.
Right.
So when it comes to accountability, it's how are you reflecting? How are you processing? How are you going about being better? How are you going about walking within your truth, going into your purpose? That's self-accountability. And until you're made aware of it, you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again that puts you in the same depleted situations that you can't get out of. So once you're aware, you break the cycle. Once you break the cycle, it's through accountability. It's self-checking yourself. It's self-processing yourself. There's one thing that Assel said and that Nekia said that was actually quite profound, that actually worked together. What like Assel said is him being vulnerable and seeing the day-to-day when it comes to, I wouldn't do that for anybody else but for my wife. When you're in a courtship, just like what Nekia said, when you're upfront with of where you are, of where you want to be, you're still choosing that person before marriage. Like, this is who I want to be vulnerable with for the rest of my life.
Right.
That's before the ring even comes on, right? So within the courtship, you have to be upfront with your vulnerability. You have to be upfront with your emotions. You have to be upfront of, this is my truth, this is my purpose, I feel like this is my calling, this is where I want to be at peace, learn how to be a peacemaker. The other person, it's an acceptance thing. You want to feel accepted, the other person wants to be accepted. Oprah said, the biggest thing. Everyone in life that she has ever interviewed has one thing in common, no matter what culture it is, no matter what gender, no matter what they're going through. Everyone wants to be understood. Everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants to be accepted for who they are. And the thing is, when you're within that courtship, it's knowing that God is in it, that you are in a safe space where you feel safe enough to be vulnerable, to be you. You know, and that's not an easy thing to take on. And that's why when we say, oh, I kissed my last frog, it's that whole, no more, enough's enough.
Right.
I want that safe space.
Right.
I want to find that common ground where you're good with me and I'm good with you,
Yes.
and you choose me and I choose you. You know, because before you even get to marriage, you have to choose the person. Oh, no, where we say, no, God helps you choose, but at the same time, you can say no. You can say no. God can present the person. You're like, no, you know, so you want to feel that, okay, this person chooses me, you know, and it gets to the point of, you know, this culture of selfishness, this culture of, well, what about me? You know, and I love what Assel said with the whole, when it comes to the maturity aspect, that's how I feel like you really know that you're ready. That you can now hold emotional space, not just for one, but for two. You're at a great mind space where you go, well, okay, you know what? I'm willing to learn to hold emotional space for two. Because now when you have kids, I'm holding emotional space for you. I'm holding emotional space for this one. I'm holding emotional space for this baby. You know, like, you have to learn how to open up your heart and your mind and your senses of reflecting, you know? And with that being said, I know that we're starting to wrap up a bit now, which we could probably sit here and keep on talking more and more about this, but I would really love to know your thoughts when it comes to lean not unto your own understanding. I really want to know when it comes to your thoughts on God calling us to a place of lean on me and not on you. And what does that look like? Or what could you tell our audience? What does that look like when it comes to trust the process?
Lean not on your own understanding. To me, it goes back to, it's just like these glasses. Every time I get my prescription 2 years ago, I can't see out of them versus my prescription now. Every time God reveals a new version of me, I must be willing to accept it and not let my pride and ego tell me what it should look like. And I think being willing to take on whatever comes with that.
Yeah.
And knowing the value of the cost of not being willing to do it versus staying in alignment with, I must be willing to take on all that he's showing me at this phase.
Right.
Mercy.
Love that.
Mercy.
For me, that's actually my favorite verse, Proverbs 3:5-6. The way I've always looked at it is, you know, just when you think about the words, lean not on your own understanding. And so when you lean on something, you're putting weight behind it. You're putting your force behind it. And your understanding is your perception, your truth, your reality, what you perceive to be what is. And, you know, just to give a simple example, it's like when I look at my wife and I look at her actions, I will have an understanding. And I will say that she's doing this for that, and she's like this way for this way, and these are the reasons why she's doing that. That is my understanding of it. But if I submit myself to that verse, which says, lean not, it means I cannot put weight on how I perceive the situation in front of me. So what I have to do is I have to have the courage to take my perception, to take my reality, submit it to the altar and say, okay, Lord, this is what I think, and this is how I perceive the situation. What do I do? And a lot of times in that, it's like, look, yeah, I know it looks like A, but it's completely Z. Yeah, it may look like she doesn't care, but she actually very much does care, and she's going through something that has nothing to do with you, and you're just going to go through a little valley a little bit, and I need you to just love through that. And what that means is I cannot put my weight behind what I wanted to do, how I wanted to react, how I wanted to fix or solve the situation. I had to sacrifice my will, my right to be right, and say, all right, you know what, Lord, I'm going to submit. Lord, you tell me what to do, because how I'm perceiving the situation, I'm missing it. And you told me I can't trust what I'm seeing. Just like you said with the prescription. I can't trust what I'm seeing, so I need you to show me what I need to see. Because even when it looks a certain way, what it is behind the scenes is something completely different. So I look at it as like, again, don't put your weight on what you believe to be true. Allow God to reveal to you what truth is.
Wow.
Thank you. This was enlightful, actually. The beautiful thing about detox, and we all say, I view it as group therapy. We get our experiences, we learn from each other, and I love learning from people that want to get to a healthier spot, because healing isn't linear, right? But the will to want to keep growing is. And it's a beautiful thing, it's a beautiful journey. And when it comes to detox, it's about that non-judgment, nothing going on here. Like, we just want to get to a better space with God, a better space with ourselves, a better space when it comes to our social responsibility. So again, we'd like to thank our audience for joining in. We love you guys. Thank you for your support. We'd like to thank our life coaches, Nekia, Foxx, Assel, Jean-Pierre. You can look in the description very soon to see where you can find them on social media as well. Contact them. Moving forward, we'd like to thank our co-host, Myrna Nash, for joining us as well. We'd like to thank behind the scenes when it comes to Tele Anacaona. Thank you for being here, for supporting us, for End Time Sabbath Worship Center, for supporting your young adults within our journey, within these times right now, for having a safe space to talk. So thank you again. Tomorrow afternoon, we're here with Dr. James Doggett Jr., and we're so excited for that discussion as well. And again, thank you for joining us when it comes to Detox. And we'll see you tomorrow.